Nut that's already drilled, so we can lock the pump and slowly quarter of a turn on E3 and E5. I love how clean and everything is all nice and shiny. Vanos and timing time. So what we're going to do, I'll show you how to set up your timing. So in order for you to know that you are good to go, your camshaft lobes on cylinder 1 are pointing towards each other, just like in this. Next, on the very back, we have the... Actually, I do have the blocks already installed. I kind of skipped that step. I can show you guys how to do that, but basically it just slides over, locks in, so the cam does not move. We have dots on those camshafts. They gotta be facing up, and you will see A for exhaust and E for intake. Tap that center. If you tap that center mark, try to keep it in the middle. It should technically be more towards the left, but middle is fine enough as far as the wheel goes and the alignment of all these goodies over here. You can always just pull this off, switch it a little bit to the left, and put it back on, but we're not gonna do that. Center is just fine. All the bolts that we're going to torque are pretty much about 7.5, 8 pounds, which is 10 Newton meters as far as the little bolts go. So anything that's pretty much little, like let's say those or the nuts that go on here, they will be 7 pounds. And then we do about 10 to 11 pounds on the bolts that go into this camshaft gear right here. This blade can only go one way. There's no other way it will go. This is the only way it fits. The good thing about this piece, for example, where's the camera here? You will see indentations of how it's set before. So try to stick to those indentations or the marks and just put it in. Everything hand tight for now. Basically what we're doing is we're trying to assemble this side first and this side being last, simply because this is where we're not going to tighten the bolts until the last moment, so that way we can bring the Vanos in and out. So first step would be just to tighten those bolts over here. And we're looking at, like I mentioned before, about 10 to 11 Newton meters, which is literally nothing. See that's all it is. Next up, after we get this torque, is to install our tensioner. There's 4 bolts. I get their 6mm bolts, 2 on top, 1 in the front and 1 in the back. Get them all in by hand, like at least hand tighten them. The torque sequence is once again between 10 and 11 Newton meters on all of the sides. Make sure you keep the tensioner still compressed, because we're not ready to let it go yet. Not just yet. If you've put a zip tie at the very beginning of this, it would stay the same way as it came up. So what's going to happen, we're just going to install this in here. Slowly and gently. But what we want we want the centers to be pretty much, the sprockets to be in the center. And then what I mean by that is in the center, the holes, there's not same distance on both sides, on this one and on that one as well. So now as you guys can see, pretty much the center of the sprocket is in the center of the bolt hole, and same thing over here. What this will allow you to do is when the Vanos moves, you have enough adjustment for you to be able to install the Vanos itself. So what we do, we have all those extra washers and spacers that pretty much you guys were able to take off. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with this one. It's a thinner plate. Thinner plate goes in first. Then we have this concave washer. This little piece has to go the concave side out. What I mean is basically the column shape goes here, and we close everything up with the washer, the last washer, which is I believe 4 millimeters. Put that in. So now we have a big sandwich of everything all together, and apply the 10 millimeter nuts that we cured previously. Make sure you don't drop it into the block or anything. That will be a bad day. Once we have this, once again we're going to torque it to between 10 and 11 Newton meters. I want to go little by little to crush the washer itself. Next thing on the list is this little washer. Basically the washer will only go one way in. We're going to put the bolts in here too. We want to get them in as much as possible, but do not tighten them completely. So what we're going to do is just hand tighten those, because we need to be able to move the Vanos back and forth. So when we first set this up, we were sitting pretty much in the middle. There was equal spaces on the left and right hand side. Once we have that, what we're going to do is use this tool, Vanos tool, to move everything to the right as much as possible. So I can only get it in here. There you go. And now we are ready to fit in the Vanos and put it inside and lock it in place. Well, once we slide the Vanos on, you will notice that it's not going in very well by itself. You have to do it with your fingers. Find the sweet spot where it just jumps in, just like it did right now. And with your Vanos tool, as you lock it inside, it will pull the Vanos assembly together. And then we do this all the way in. See, like I said, my Vanos tool is not the best one. Bought on Amazon, so can't really complain much. Then we push this in. Make sure your eye on the dowels. There's dowel pins everywhere. Just put a little bit of silicone here too, on the joints, because we do not want this to leak. Before I do anything else, I like to take the nuts that go on here and just put them on. Once again, we're tightening this to 11 feet. But make sure you guys have clear access to your Vanos, to your exhaust camshaft, because you still didn't torque those down, and those have to be torqued to 15 pounds. So that's the next step on the list, is to torque those to 15 pounds. Here we go. I like to do it in a crisscross pattern. How you do it is up to you. I recommend doing it in a crisscross pattern. Vanos plugs and just tighten them to 50 Newton meters. And that's pretty much our assembly as far as Vanos goes. It's actually quite simple. A few steps are included, but you definitely need this magical tool and some way to actually push the tensioner inside. Other than that, just follow the simple procedure of all the torque specs and it should be good to go. One last thing I'm going to do once everything is done, I will rotate the engine full rotation basically, just to make sure everything works the same way, they come back the same way, there's no strange noises or anything like that. So let me take off the blocks in the back and let's spin this motor. Seems like it's going pretty good. I do not hear any abnormal sounds. We have an engine half rotation. Let's continue to the full rotation. It's coming up. One full rotation. As we can tell right here, lobes are in the way they're supposed to be and camshafts are square in the back. So we're good to go. So now it's time for us to swap things over. Drill some holes in the valve cover for the breather. Maybe repaint, clean the valve cover because it's pretty nasty. It hasn't been touched in a very long time. Oh, and I forgot one thing. Probably one of the main things. Don't forget to put in your tensioner. Yeah, don't be like Chris. Remember your tensioner. Manifold has been pulled off. I cleaned it off nicely so the surface is nice and good to accept a new gasket. And then I started looking like what's going on over here. So everything seems to be okay on this side. It's a little dry. Yeah, typical. Good, good, good. Like, there's a little bit of residue of something going on over here. But this section does not look good at all. That's cylinder number 5. Cylinder number 5 is probably the area where the head gasket decided to go bye-bye. Now let's get those studs into the new engine that I'm missing, and after I do that, basically slap this on and continue assembly. Got the engine mount already on here, and I'm missing a few of them, so the best way is to do 210s. Just put them in, back them out. Simple deal. Gotta do that for 6 more. I'll show you guys really quickly how I put in the studs myself. So what I like to do is take 311s, like a shorty, all of them ratchetable, and basically on a ratchet. Make sure this one will go one direction, which is left. That's for unscrewing. Feed the bolt through. So that way when I have to get up, I just get up. Get the stud nice and tight in there. Sometimes I actually prefer using this. Just better feel. There you go, we're in. So what I'm gonna do, loosen this one up. Bam. Take the first one off. Let's screw the second. That's a superiordriftgarage quick tip on how to install exhaust studs. the injector connectors. Take a look at it. This is basically the best way to leave them open. There's a simple reason behind this. When you push that in, it will lock really quickly, and since we are actually not working with a lot of room in the back where the intake manifold sits, you are able to actually just go ahead and reach this with your finger and just push them in. It will lock in, no problem, because they are designed to go in the same spot every single time. So just as a tech tip, make sure you leave them spread open, so that way it's going to be just a tad easier for you to put this back together. Also, I'm thinking of deleting the heater core completely. So this hose that goes from the back of the head ends up going over here, where it connects to the actual junction. Ah, crap, water. Great. Anyway, it connects to this one way or another. Oh, this way, right here. So I don't really need that, and I will just run this hose under and straight into the motor in the back. So we'll go from the front all the way to the back. That's my idea of how to do it. We'll see if it actually turns out to be a smart idea or not. Currently, where I'm stuck at is trying to figure out the best situation for the coolant routing, since I don't have heater core, and my coolant tank sits basically like right in this spot over here in the back. So I'm thinking to get a three-way connector, go from here to the three-way connector, so it goes here, and the other end of the three-way connector will come out and run basically 2 feet to the coolant tank, instead of this hose running from the back all the way to the front. So if your sensors, your knock sensors, look like this, please do yourself a favor and replace it before you put the engine in, because that's under the valve, under the manifold, intake manifold, and getting to it is going to be a goddamn nightmare. OEM, of course, is the best way to go. Brand new sensor. Technically speaking, running E85, there's no knock, so I don't really have to worry about it, but that's gonna throw the check engine on. So just for future preventive maintenance, I'd rather replace this thing right now while everything is out, and then worry about it later when it's in there, because taking this out when it's in there, that's gonna be a nightmare and a half. When the harness is off, well, this one's slightly on, but it's only being held up by one bolt. It's not that really bad to actually get into it. So as you guys have seen, injectors are replaced. I did have a battle with this hose in order to remove the rail. Actual hose clamp got seized up, so we have a new one right now. But anyway, we got the blue ones. Those are 880 cc's. Everything is mounted. I've looped the O-rings as well, so it's easier to slide in. Pretty much looks better and feels better. As well as on the bottom, I have new O-rings for the intake manifold as well. And one other change that I have done over here is I deleted this hose. This hose was the one that's going right into your radiator in the front, but to the coolant tank surge tank in the front. Since I'm not having the surge tank in the front, this is blocked off. I chopped that hose off of here that was going to the heater core. We're going to do a split, so it's a T-split. And that hose that's over there is going to connect to here and basically run a short distance to the coolant tank. The valve cover, as you guys can see, is being painted right now. Primer is drying, so we'll take care of that in a second. Valve cover is going to be the last, simply because I have breathers to put in and other things. Turbo is going on very soon as well. I gotta split the case and paint it. Obviously, I have some high temperature red paint. I know it's pretty much not the best one since we're using a caliper paint, but hey, it's 900 degrees and that turbo is gonna get hot. The valve cover is also going to be covered with that as well, and I'll do a few layers of it. We'll see how it looks. So up next, what we have going is the thermostat. We're running a colder thermostat. I will have to specify the specs. I don't remember, it was about a while ago. So we're going to put a new thermostat, and of course I had to get a new housing. Because I still have the stuff drying over there, as we can see. Let's zoom in. There you go. Yeah, the stuff is still drying. By the time it dries, it will be a while, so I'm just gonna put the intake manifold on. Intake manifold bolts, nuts I should say in that case, should be torqued to 11 foot-pounds, also known as 15 Newton meters. So this is what we're going to do now. Get them nice and torqued. Have you ever wondered how the belt goes? It's really simple. You want to go all the way around, just push this through with your finger, and that's basically where it locks in, and that's how your belt goes on. Pretty much everything is almost on. Almost. Some things are obviously not hooked up, like the wiring over here for the alternator, which I have to do that. I should have done that right away. I have not done that yet. Everything else is pretty much ran and ready to go. Certain things that have to be changed will get changed. This is my bypass that I did. So I bypassed the hose that goes towards the front, which is right here. It's Teflon. There's Teflon inside on the fitting and squashed, so it will not leak. Water will go now from here straight to the head and straight to the coolant tank. Vanos and all the hoses are on. Sensors, everything is on. Yeah, pretty much almost ready, other than this. This is still a disaster. That will stay a disaster until tomorrow, but I'm not worried about that too much. This was the most important thing that I have. I would say I am happy with the progress so far. More coming. The engines have swapped places. The engine that was in there is right here on the actual stand, simply because I want to go through. and see what's going on, rebuilding. Right here we have the current engine that's nicely built. I hope it's nicely built. Gotta assemble everything, so right now what I will take care of is the clutch, the flywheel, and the transmission. Once that is mounted, I will continue with the valve cover, which is still drying, but I'm serious, this thing, the paint that came out is amazing. It's literally freaking amazing. I mean, video doesn't do it justice, honestly, but glitter red is what I went for. How I achieved that is really simple. I used a 900-degree brake caliper paint, which is red. So this, followed by this, which is a Ford red, followed by actual glitter in the spray, and clear coat, high gloss clear coat. So I'm hoping that the temperature will not eat anything, because we have about 3 layers of the high temperature one. Should be fine. We'll see. The previous one didn't come off and was perfect, so this one should not come off and should be perfect. I'm done talking. Let's get this transmission flywheel on, and that'll be it for today. The bolts for the flywheel, I'm using the short bolts. Basically, I'm reusing the old ones that I had already in there. They're really hard, and we have to torque them to 105 Newton meters, which is like 74 pounds. And I do not really trust my contraption over here that I have going, which is basically jack stands on that side and wood on this side. So what I'm going to do is I will use this jack under the arm just to prevent this thing from tilting. Obviously we gotta push pretty hard to get this on, so let's get that going. So in a situation like this where you're gonna torque the flywheel, obviously you will need one of those pins. Those pins come in the kit with the timing blocks. So now, basically in the back of the head, there's a hole where you would insert this. It's coming up. Right there. And that's where it locks the flywheel. So that way we are able to torque it. Let's get it torqued to 74 pounds, I believe, and 105 Newton meters of torque. I got everything ready. Let's get started. So if you've paid attention to my installation and everything of the flywheel, you probably realized I was missing a very important part. Yep, that would be the pilot bearing, which for some reason disappeared. I don't know what happened. So I got one installed already, and I'm gonna proceed with the rest of the parts that needs to go on here. So the bolts that hold the pressure plate, it's a twin plate clutch over here that we have, a single mesh flywheel. The torque specs on this, I've read that it should be about 28 pounds each. Let's do 28 pounds and see how it feels.
I never wanna hold you back. I wanna give you every chance to make it, to make it. I'm afraid if our love collides, you'll leave me alone tonight, 'cause I'm changing.